As the mayor of the town of Clayton, I'd like to call this regular town council meeting to order. I ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the many blessings of this day. And we ask, Lord, now that you be with us as we proceed with the business for the town of Clayton. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, there's one adjustment to the agenda, Mayor. It'll be item under new business, so that's 8. Item D, downtown mural program guidelines and applications. We'd like to move that off of the agenda. We'll look at putting that on the January 6th agenda.
Okay, I got that noted. Up next is your consent agenda.
Move we approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Up next under introductions and special presentation will be the new employee introductions, starting with Mr. Steve Blasco.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Through the years, my departments have always been the stepping stones for employees to get their foot in the door with the town of Clayton. I feel that this latest group of guys are some of the best and brightest employees that we've hired, and I look forward to seeing how their careers advance with the town of Clayton. With that said, I would like to introduce my department's 3 newest employees. My first 2 hires are both in the streets department. First, we have Mr. Julian Holt. Mr. Holt was born and raised in Raleigh and recently attended Fayetteville State University. And like myself, he likes to fish and spend as much time outdoors as possible. Next, we have Russell Yoland. Mr. Yoland is a recent transplant from the Big Apple and brings with him lots of experience and hopefully cannolis for everybody. And last but not least, we have Norman Nelson. He comes to us from the town of Garner. Mr. Nelson brings with him lots of knowledge and some great ideas that I think are going to benefit the town of Clayton. And I'll let them talk about themselves a little bit.
Hi, Russell. Just like to thank you for the opportunity. It's very happy to be here. It's a great place we're looking forward to raising our family here. Came down with my wife, my 3 daughters. And it's been great so far. Everyone's been super nice, and it's been a good learning experience. And I look forward to working.
Awesome.
As you said, my name is Julian Holt. I dwell from Raleigh, North Carolina. I played football at Fayetteville State after college. It's been a great opportunity for me, and I love the job and the camaraderie that it brings with my coworkers and my bosses and stuff. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm Norman Nelson. I'm just very privileged to work for the town of Clayton. I served 22 years in the Navy, served my country. Now I'm ready to serve the citizens of Clayton.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome to the team.
That's great. Absolutely.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Adam. I'm James Blaylock. I'm the Utility Maintenance Supervisor with the Water and Sewer Preventative Maintenance Division. I'm here tonight to introduce my 2 newest employees and to announce that my division is finally fully staffed. First up, we have a young man who just graduated high school last year. He comes highly recommended from a former employee, Barry Rose. He's bilingual, which allows my division to better serve the community with what we do. And I'm very honored to be able to help him in his career in the water and sewer industry. And Mr. Jairo Sanchez.
Thank you so much for the chance. Thank you so much for the chance James and the town has given me. I'm very grateful for it. Thank you.
Okay, this next young man, some of you may know. He's a former employee with the town. He was the street department's crew leader for about 10 years. He brings back to the town his leadership skills, his ability to think on his feet, his mechanical mindset, and his hard-working abilities. So without further ado, Mr. Donnie Baker.
Thank y'all for bringing me back into the fold, so to speak, and I really appreciate it. I'm in an entirely new field now. I like working with biologicals, and James is really astute when it comes to that, so thank you.
Awesome. Welcome.
So I'm gonna announce Miss Delisha Barnes. She comes up to the podium. Just want to say how thrilled we are to have her as the town's new Human Resources Director. Delisha has many years' experience in the HR field. She's a fellow UNC grad, so that didn't knock her down any in the process. But I know she's prepared a song and a dance that she was going to share with everybody as well. So Delisha, just take it away.
All right. For my first, no, I'm just kidding. I am extremely happy to be here. I'm officially into week 2 now and have been extremely impressed with the way that I've been welcomed by all the employees and really the passion that I can already see in the town employees. I'm hoping to bring my private industry experience to this role in local government and bring together the best of both worlds. Everyone probably knows where the administrative area sits, so if you're a town employee or just a community member, would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. Thanks.
Welcome.
I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you come back for the last 2 weeks. But we did put a little extra money in the budget for ankle monitors for any employee that doesn't really want to show up to work, and the chief just got the message right then. We're so glad to have you here. Thank you so much, and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is a special recognition of a longtime Library Advisory Board member, Bill Allen.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Joy Garrettson, the Library Director here in town. I'm going to talk a little bit about why Belle Allen won this award, and she has heard everything I'm going to say, but I want everybody to hear it, so just buck up, get ready. So everybody knows what it's like to meet somebody who kind of has that spark, you know, when you meet someone who's special and they just are more than the sum of their parts. And it took me about 12 seconds to know that about Belle Allen. I walked in my first day of work, didn't know anybody. There were flowers on my desk from some lady who had interviewed me, and she's turned out to be one of our greatest library supporters, and I'm just so grateful to know her. Belle has been a faithful library board member for over half a century, since 1966. She is a lifetime Clayton resident, a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. You can see some of her sweeties back there. She's a retired school administrative assistant and a tireless volunteer for many causes. She has helped with the expansion of the library and the betterment of its services, and that's been one of her main missions. Since starting on the board, she has guided the library as it moved from a one-room facility in the old town hall to its current site in 1981. Since then, she's fundraised, she's volunteered, and she's supported the library as it's grown. She was present for 3 expansions to the current facility and was a big participant in our most recent Spaces and Services assessment. She's been both the vice chair and the chair of the library board, and she is currently the vice chair of the board. She's an avid library user, and she regularly attends and volunteers for events. She's the first to volunteer when asked, and she is also the first to tell library staff how much they're needed and appreciated. She gives all of us birthday cards. She gives all of us hugs. She tells us she loves us. It's the best, totally. She embodies the warm and welcoming spirit of Clayton, and she is a total draw to this town. We need to put her face on a poster. Though she's had 53 years of service and she's the longest serving member of our board, she's also one of the most forward-thinking. She supports new technology programs just as avidly as she supports the upkeep of our print collection. And her goal for future building plans for the library is simple: to give the library what it needs to foster learning and connection in Clayton. Belle has the unanimous respect of all of our town council members, of the mayor, of the staff, the board, and the Friends of the Library. She wholeheartedly deserves the Trustee of the Year award from the North Carolina Public Library Directors Association, and I'm so honored to be able to give it to her. Belle Allen.
Well, you know, I'm never at a loss for words. It shocked me so when Joy told me that, and invited me to go to wherever it was, Greensboro, or Winston-Salem, to accept the award. And I said, what award? And I said, no, I don't want to go, and I don't need an award. And anyway, she is fantastic. And I guess if she told all that she said that I halfway heard tonight, I'm sure they thought, we need to give her. She's the oldest rat in the barn. Library has always been a special part of my life since I was a little child. I love to read. I love to experience all new things. Books. As a child, I could lose myself in books and go anywhere and do anything. And you can still do that today. And now we have so much more in our library. We are so fortunate here in Clayton. I'm so proud of it and proud of you for your support of it. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve, because as my daddy taught me earlier, as a child, each of us should do our best to make the world a little better than it was before you came. So it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
You have certainly done. And Belle, don't sit down, just stand right there. Because with her tonight are 4 generations of her family. And I'm gonna ask y'all to stand up and be seen too, so join Belle and stand up. What a wonderful family. And as the mayor of the town of Clayton, I can tell you there is only one person in the entire town of Clayton that you cannot say no to, and that is Belle Allen. And we can't thank you enough for all that you've done. Thank you for being here tonight. Joy, thank you so much for such a great honor. That's fantastic.
We do have the best library staff in North Carolina, so you have to speak to that.
I would put them up against any of them.
Thank you all so much for a good party.
Go party. We have a lot to celebrate. Up next is a very distinguished honor and privilege that I have to read a proclamation honoring Robert Bob Ayler. Whereas, whereas our life is like a book, each completed milestone representing a chapter in our life, and whereas Robert Bob Ayler has served this community for over 20 years in numerous capacities, such as serving on the town council and the planning board, including 12 years as Clayton Mayor Pro Tem, and whereas untiringly devoted over 20 years to our community during a period of time that numerous projects were initiated through his leadership, which will continue to have a revitalizing and growing impact on our community far beyond his terms of service. And whereas the town of Clayton has benefited greatly because of Robert Bob Aylert's particular interest and work in the area of the town's financial position, and whereas Robert Bob Aylert was a motivator for the vision and the development that recommended turning 2 old downtown schools into what is now the Clayton Center, and whereas Robert Bob Aylert has demonstrated in many effective ways his deep and genuine love for our community and has earned the admiration and high regard of those with whom he has come into contact and of his fellow public servants. And now, therefore, the Town of Clayton Town Council does express our sincere appreciation and thanks to Robert Bob Aylert for his distinguished service to the community and highly commend him for the manner in which he has carried out his duties and responsibilities, duly proclaimed this 16th day of December 2019. Bob, would you please come forward?
Recognize my family is all here tonight. My wife and daughter, her husband, Sue and Dan Schaefer, and 2 of my grandsons, and our granddaughter-to-be in the future.
That's awesome.
We got Rob and John and Rachel. And I want to thank the council for this recognition, and I appreciate the opportunity to have served for as many years as I have, and hope we've left it in a little better place than when we first got here. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. So many one-of-a-kinds this evening. This is fantastic. So up next, I would like to have a citizen recognition, the Hope Box blankets, and I'll turn it over to the chief.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm going to introduce a couple folks here in just a minute, but if you're planning on leaving, you're not allowed to leave for a second because this will be something you're going to want to hear. Sometimes it's good to be the chief, I guess. So last year, I had a woman that I know who is a wife of a former coworker of mine asked me if we would be a donation site for blankets for babies, a 501c3 that she runs that collects blankets and gives to children in the wintertime. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do it. And we collected 51 blankets last year. You know, it sounds pretty good. The most important thing was it was more than Apex, so I was happy about that. So she came to me again this year and said, can we do it again this year? And I said, absolutely. We're going to work to do better than Apex again this year. And so we decided we wanted to collect 150 blankets from the community for our 150th year. That was our goal. We had 51 last year. I thought this was going to be a pretty good goal. And so up on the screen, you can see we had people just come in, some business owners, the Patels there from the BP gas station, just other individuals would come in and give us blankets. And pretty quickly, we were beyond 150. So I was really, really excited about that. So fast forward to Harvest Fest, and if Andrew and Avery will come up, the parents will bring it up, and Officer Tyler. So Officer Tyler Officer McNeil was at Harvest Fest, and he was doing a demonstration with K9 Raven. And at some point, young Avery here comes up to him and asks for a hug. So Tyler, being the guy that he is, was more than happy to give her a hug and just made a comment that her jacket felt like a blanket. And from that, started this conversation about this blanket drive. And these 2 young, remarkable kids here came up with the idea that they were going to collect blankets and donate them to this event. So they had a lot of people do that. They both belong to Revolution Martial Arts. And Andrew was on a video that they posted on Facebook. And, you know, you put cute kids in front of a camera and things happen. And you want to go to the next slide? So they worked over a few weeks and collected over 500 blankets on their own that they brought to us. And so we are blown away by the work that these two young kids have done. We want to make a presentation to them tonight, Mr. Mayor, with your help. We want to give them our highest civilian award on the police department for their exemplary work that they have done. I will say, I just heard from the organizer, and they have, so far, she hasn't collected from all places yet, but they have 1,160 blankets. 1,044 came from the town of Clayton, and half of those came from these two young kids right here. So I've been blown away by the Clayton community and how generous it is. But this is a fine example of two young kids that are just going to be outstanding citizens. They're going to take all of our jobs one day, and that's great. The future is really bright. So I'm going to read one of these, and we'll give them to both kids here. But Mr. Mayor, if you'll come down, and we'll hand this out to Andrew and Avery. But it says, "To all may read these letters, greetings. This is to certify that Avery and Andrew Heil are awarded the civilian service for making significant contributions to the enhancement of the department and its operation, and for exceptional service to the citizens of the town of Clayton, given on this 16th day of December in the year of our Lord, 2019. So you kids are great, and we want to present these things to you. It just goes to show you, you never know what a hug's going to turn out to be. And Mr. Mayor, before I relinquish the microphone, their family is all involved in this, but their grandmother, who goes by May, I think she wants to kind of tell how this has spun into something even more than what we presented tonight. So.
You want to tell come here. Jump.
I
Ready?
can look.
So tell them what it's going to be called? Operation
Kick Out the Cold.
And they're going to, we have a website we're going to go ahead and start for them. And their grandfather's actually out of town right now, business, and I'm going to start a 501c for them. And what's your goal next year? The number?
750.
750. Their original goal between them was 30.
Wow.
And the number was 563. So we'll be starting a 501c for them for blankets, and there we go. So.
Andrew, how old are you?
7. I just turned 7.
Okay, I have 11 years left. For the record.
And Avery is
Great
4.
mayor.
Avery is 4. So, and it was originally Avery's idea that she discussed with her brother. So.
There you go.
Thank you.
Avery, that just means behind every good man is a good woman. So awesome. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to some public hearings, and the first public hearing is the 2019-229RZ, the JAK Holding rezoning.
Good evening, Haley Hoag with the Planning Department. This request is for JAK Holdings rezoning. The applicant is Ready Roofing. They are requesting to rezone their property from residential estate to highway business. The property is just under 1.5 acres in size. It is located at the northwest corner of Shotwell and Old US Highway 70, that intersection, and the existing use is a single-family residence. This just shows the current zoning map as in comparison to the proposed zoning map. As you can see, the property is zoned residential and the properties to the north are also residential. However, the properties to the south are zoned commercially. And this kind of just gives you a look at what the intersection looks like now. So the red star on the screen shows the subject property, and that upper right-hand corner picture, that is the visibility from Shotwell Road for that property. It is very wooded, and there is a single-family residence there. And then to the bottom right corner, that is Car Club. It's an auto detailing shop. The bottom left corner is vacant right now, but it has in the past been approved for a commercial development. That site plan expired, but it was once approved for that. And then the upper left-hand corner is the office retail location. It's a little strip mall, and that's actually where Ready Roofing is located right now. So they're looking to just relocate across the street. The proposed rezoning to highway business is inconsistent with the future land use map designation, which is low-density residential. However, it is worth pointing out that all of the parcels at this intersection are designated as residential, but they are currently developing to be commercial. So we are supportive of the rezoning due to the consistency with the other parcels at the intersection. And we also envision this intersection in the future to serve as a commercial node for the surrounding neighborhoods. And even though it is inconsistent with the future land use map, the town council may approve it. And if it is approved, the future land use map would be automatically updated accordingly. And then for the surrounding land uses, it's generally consistent. Again, to the north, there are residences, but to the south, it is commercially zoned, and there are commercial developments. So just something to keep in mind, this is just for the rezoning. So if it were to be rezoned, a site plan would have to go through the process. It would be a major site plan to develop a new building and parking here, and they would have to meet buffer requirements against the residential properties, which in this case would include a Class C buffer no matter what it is, which would include a 6-foot-tall opaque barrier and some plantings. And with that, we are recommending approval, and Planning Board also heard this request last month at their meeting, and they recommended approval as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Mr. Grants?
Just a couple of questions. In their approval criteria application, question 5 is, has been determined that the legal purposes for which the zoning exists are not violated. And they say this is not considered spot zoning because it abuts existing commercially zoned properties. To me, abutting is next to, and to me, it doesn't really do that. And I'm assuming that there is still no problem with respect to that particular answer because of the properties that are to the south and also the east. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we, since they're to the south, it is zoned commercially, we are supportive of it. We consider that abutting even though it goes across the right-of-way.
Okay. And I could be very wrong here, but I was under the impression that there has to be some form of a zoning buffer between a residential section and a commercial section. I think somewhere in our ordinances, we have a requirement like that where O&I is like a buffer zone. Is that not applicable here?
I'm not aware of anything in the ordinance for that.
So back to the question about spot zoning. So in zoning and planning world, any type of right-of-way, body of water, anything like that is still considered abutting. So just because there's some sort of right-of-way there, we still consider something across the street as abutting. And also we do have to have a landscape buffer that will be required as part of the, he's also our planner too and our sound technician tonight. Sorry.
Many hats.
They'll be very proud. But there would be a buffer required. I think it's just me.
It really didn't start till you got up here.
I know. Must be the braces that's interacting with the thing. No, there will have to be a buffer around any properties that are not zoned similar to this property. And I'm going to back away.
Okay, that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, anyone else? All right, if not, it has been advertised as a public hearing, so if there's anyone wishing to speak on this, please step forward and state your name for the record. No, go to the microphone. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Marvin Powell. This is my father, William Powell. He's a disabled veteran. He owns 1275 Shotwell Road that will be abutting this development if it's approved. Like you say, we object to it because it would be spot zoning. It would be abutting a commercial development right against his backyard. There are no other commercial buildings on this whole block. All of them are across the street. And like you say, this is not consistent with the future land use. So we just object to it. We don't want a commercial development right beside our house. And the traffic, for one, outside our driveway is already traffic backed up from the light. So we won't even be able to get out of our driveway with additional traffic that'll be going to this building. We just want to make it clear that we object to any development.
All right. Questions or comments?
That'll be all.
Anyone else?
Would like to point out the applicant is here as well to speak and present.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Justin Woodruff, CEO of Ready Roofing Company. So basically what we've done is we've just kind of run out of room where we are currently. We're leasing a couple of spaces and we're just running out of room. So we're literally just moving right across the street just to expand our operation and grow. So it'll be us in there. We do plan on putting 4 tenants in there as well to kind of help us, pay the mortgage on the place, if you will. So happy to put up any trees or anything we need to do to make it happen, but it's just a typical story of a local business growing too much and having to expand. So,
awesome. Questions or comments?
And you guys are welcome to come over and speak with us about it if you want. We're right across the street. Happy to have open, dialogue on it.
Mr. Granis.
You mentioned that you're just going to move the existing business in the approval criteria. Could you share with us what business that is?
Ready Roofing Company, so we do roofing. So we're just actually in the Clayton Christmas parade as well. So.
And it's just office space? Is that
just
my
we'll have an office space and a warehouse as well for storage purposes.
And will you have an open yard in addition to the warehouse space?
We will have a fenced-in yard out back, yes, correct. And this is kind of all contingent upon the space that we're allowed, of course. It could change drastically.
So just to touch on the use, since this is just the rezoning portion, for a contractor office to move into the spot, even if it is rezoned, they would have to go through a conditional use permit, and then it would be quasi-judicial, and then outdoor storage would also have to go through, I believe, town council now, since we added that as an accessory use.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Cool, thanks, appreciate it.
So before I turn it over to the council, I want to just make something kind of clear to the best of my ability, and staff, unclear me if it's cloudy. They're basically asking for a rezoning of this property. So that's what the council will be deciding on if they want to rezone it. Should it get rezoned, there will be a litany of technical things that they will have to go through with design and neighborhood meetings and all of this stuff before anything can be built or any future development can take place. So tonight is simply to rezone the property or not rezone the property. It's not based on what is coming or what could be coming, because that is not what is relevant. The relevancy is really just the rezoning of the property. But I will tell you, as an adjoining landowner, for any future development, if this gets rezoned, they will be very active with their adjoining neighbors. So there will be a lot of things that they have to go through in order to make this happen. But obviously the first step is that the property would have to be rezoned. It doesn't necessarily mean that when they brought something to us that would automatically pass. that's a whole separate entity and issue within itself. But tonight, we're just discussing, the council will just be voting on rezoning the property or not. Is that pretty clear, Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak on this? If not, I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the council for their discussion.
You ready for motion?
Yes. For the last minute and a half.
After considering the recommendations of the planning board and the planning director, I move to approve case number 2019-229 rezoning J.A.K. Holding, and to approve the statement of consistency and reasonableness included in this agenda package.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Aye. And motion carries. Okay, up next under public hearing is the 2019-230 RZ Grand Plaza rezoning.
You want? I can do this. All right, we'll see if this one will work. This is the Grand Plaza rezoning. It is a request to rezone a property at 13025 US Highway 70 Business from B3 Special Use District to B3. The existing use, it is a commercial shopping center. It is out near across the street from the Walmart Shopping Center Plaza. It is a little over 1 acre. As you may recall, this has been a trend that you all have been seeing. Property owners are asking to remove the special use district from their property so that they can readily fill their spaces and have their more uses be approved instead of having to go through a special use for every single use that comes in. So this is actually a tool to help local business owners. And as you can see here, this is what the current and then the proposed zoning would look like. This is the property and the vacant space. I believe at one time they did want to have a chiropractic office, but removing that special use district would allow any of the permitted uses in the B3 district to be allowed at this location. It is consistent with the future land use map as community center. One of the objectives of the community center designation is to serve the larger community and to be located on a major thoroughfare, which is exactly what this does. And it is very consistent with the surrounding land uses. Staff does recommend approval of this rezoning request, and Planning Board also recommended approval at their meeting last month. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments for staff? All right, thank you, ma'am. This has been noted as a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please step forward and state your name for the record. No one wishing to speak, I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the council for their discussion. Mr. Grants.
Mr. Mayor, after considering the recommendations of the Planning Board and the Planning Director, I move to approve case number 2019-230-RZ Grand Plaza and to approve the statement of consistency and reasonableness included in the agenda packet.
Second. Motion and a second for approval. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Up next is the 2019-183 special use permit, Clayton Storage. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and I will turn it over to our attorney for a briefing on the quasi-judicial process.
When sitting in a quasi-judicial nature, the council acts more like a judge than it did in its previous actions that you just observed, where it was functioning in its legislative capacity. In its quasi-judicial capacity, it will only hear evidence presented this evening that is provided after being sworn in or affirmed. It will not consider hearsay evidence, and it will not consider evidence that provided outside of the hearing this evening. It will only make a decision on competent material and substantial evidence that is presented. If anyone who wants just to speak in support of or in opposition to this action would please stand, the clerk will give the affirmation.
Thank you, Catherine. That was a great explanation, but we would like to continue this to January 6th.
I read that.
Thank you.
That's following the mayor's minutes.
All right, this has been noted as a public hearing, and we will now hear from the applicant or staff report.
No, so, Mr. Mayor, I think what the staff is saying is they would like to continue this
I understand.
item until the next meeting, which is
January 6th.
well, not the next meeting, sorry, January,
Yeah.
it is next meeting.
Let me
January
put my
6th.
glasses on because it says right here, please continue this to January 6th. It's all good.
I was just following your lead.
I'm
Thought you
getting
knew
there.
something I didn't. January 6, 2019, which has been announced, so we do not have to re-advertise.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
So continue.
Do I hear consent to continue?
Consent.
All right, we will continue that till the January 6th, 2020 meeting. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Under new business is the 2020 Clayton Chamber of Commerce Harvest Festival and Shindig dates.
This is going to be a challenge, the microphone thing.
Sorry, I'm used to it.
Perfect. If I could get taller, I would, but that's not going to happen.
I'm here to lift you up. You're good.
Good evening, council, Mr. Mayor and staff. We are here as a Clayton Chamber of Commerce and Midday Rotary Shindig to request on behalf of the Harvest Festival to have approval for the dates for October 28th through November the 1st with the Shindig and the large vendor fair, Squealing on the Festival, et cetera, being held on Halloween, which would be October the 31st. Would you like to say anything? Okay.
Awesome.
Any questions or any clarification that you would like to ask? I would like to say that we have met a couple of times with the town of Clayton, the town manager, chief of police, chief of the fire department, Parks and Rec, to discuss how this event would happen on October 31st on Halloween. I think we've worked out, we've worked collaboratively, and we are working out any issues that we've had, and I think we have come to a conclusion how we can sort of make this work. I think it's a fabulous event in itself, as we heard of just what happened earlier with the Harvest Festival. And it's not the first time that Harvest Festival week has fallen on Halloween, but it is the first time that the actual large vendor fair day and Shindig has fallen on the same day. So.
Awesome. Questions or comments?
I have one question, just so we can make it for the public record. Why did we wind up with Halloween as the date?
Well, 2 years ago, if you remember, when the hurricane came through and Harvest Festival was moved from September to October, and we moved it to the beginning of the last Wednesday in October through that Sunday. And that happened to fall on Shindig the very first year, and they were gracious enough to allow us to host our festival on the same day. The next year, the first Saturday in November happened to fall on the Shindig date, and the marriage worked. With leap year for 2020, it pushed everything out a week, and so I guess our method for the last Wednesday through Sunday in October sort of went awry. And with the discussions earlier with the town, Shindig, and with the marriage of the two events, instead of having two separate events, I'll be honest with you, we really didn't think about it being on Halloween until, we started looking at the dates and delving deeper into it.
Mr. Bunn?
So you said you had it worked out with the town. Can you elaborate about what you've got worked out?
Well, we have, I'll say worked out, maybe that might not be. But I mean, we have discussed the fact that there are ways in which we can work together on this night. We have discussed the possibility of increased security, helping the fire department in certain ways with water. And I know that the Harvest Festival is a legacy event. It is growing, and with the added marriage between the Harvest Festival and Shindig, it does increase requirement for resources, fire and police. So I think we're just in the process of trying to make it all work as one.
Cool. Mr. Granis?
You have any idea what the dates will be in 2021?
Yes, sir. I have the dates for the next 21 through 25. 2021 would be Wednesday, October 27th through October 31st, which would be a Sunday. I have 2022 would be October 26th through October 30th. 2023 will be 10/25 through 10/29. 2024 would be 10/23 through 10/27. And 2025 would be 10/29 through 11/2.
The reason I ask that is, and you correct me if I'm wrong,
okay,
I believe the last 2 years have been the first weekend in November for the weekend piece. Is that correct?
I got this.
Okay.
So traditionally, that actually, wow, yeah, you're not kidding.
I know.
So traditionally, you're actually correct. So over the Shindig, we've always traditionally been on the first weekend in November, and that's for the last 2 years. Prior to that, we were all the way back in October and got hit by a hurricane. So the first time that we actually showed up first 2 dates ever were November. And then after that, we went to October, and then we flirted with rain and hurricanes. And then once we got hit by a hurricane, we rescheduled the date to the first weekend in November. And after some beyond exhaustive research, we found that the driest days in North Carolina, coincidentally, are somewhere between October 27th and November 2nd. So typically it does fall in and around November 1st, which is kind of what you're seeing here, but it doesn't actually hit November 1st again until 2025. That's Saturday at least. And then anything before that's the state fair.
Yeah.
And the weekend prior to that is the IBMA festival.
So why would you move it up a week?
You mean as opposed to going like in towards November 8th?
Mm-hmm.
Simply based on just rain forecast, cold weather, the stuff that kind of blows in towards that date. It's just bad. Not to mention, I know the Harvest Festival has their own reasons, but for us, it goes from about a 21% chance of rain up until over 30.
You didn't have that problem this year, though, did you? Or last year?
It was November 1st this year. It was November 2nd last year. And then if you think about the weekend after, it absolutely rained like nonstop.
Have there been any contractual agreements left for any part of the celebration?
Yes, sir. One of the reasons that the Harvest Festival cannot go beyond the last weekend, or whether it falls on the, November 1st, beyond that, is the Carnival World packs up. That's the last weekend that they will do any kind of contracts in the United States. They pack up their stuff and they send them to warmer climates with their employees. So they really don't book anything past the last weekend in October. We are the last stop for this particular carnival. And so we did sign a contract with them for October 31st for 2020.
And did you have any discussions with the town prior to that?
No, sir, we did not. We had not ever in the previous years, and we did not this year. No, sir.
Well, I certainly appreciate what the chamber does, and I certainly appreciate, David, what you and your family do with respect to the Harvest Festival and also the Shindig, because obviously it attracts thousands and thousands of people. I'm somewhat disappointed that we weren't included in the conversations as a town prior to any contracts being let. Obviously, that makes it very difficult for us to say no if we chose to say no. We certainly want to be good neighbors, but that piece of it is a little frustrating to me. In the future, I think we would all appreciate it if you run into situations such as this, that you would include us in those discussions and conversations.
Yes, sir, and we certainly agree with that, and we have several dates on the calendar to discuss this with the town in 2020 going forward, prior to making any commitments.
Can I say something to that too? So this actually has uncovered something kind of great for both of us on this end of the fence, right? So one of the things that we have never done, unless it was leading up, is sitting down with the chief or the town manager, anybody for that matter. We were actually able to do that this year. And we were actually able to hash out kind of some of the pressure and the stresses that you, the town, are feeling that we really never discussed, especially this far ahead, right? So be it water trucks or be it parking and being things of that nature of getting, barriers filled, just simple things like barriers being filled. That's actually a pretty easy thing for us to adjust and maneuver. And we know that there's going to have to be some give and take and that we're all growing on this together. I don't think anybody, at least I didn't, when we started doing a fundraiser in the Flipside parking lot 8 years ago, had any idea that it would become a banner event of this town. I had no clue. This has uncovered this process. I don't want to hold everybody up, but it's been probably the most cordial roundtable meeting that I think I've ever seen, and the team that you guys have in place and the team that we have in place is just really working really, really well together. So I'm pretty impressed, by the way, and I don't think we'll ever have any miscommunications moving forward.
One of the concerns I have is the 31st falling on when it falls, and knowing various and sundry things that can happen on a Halloween night. And the chief can either attest to this or refute it. It seems to me that that's going to certainly increase the potential for having to have greater staff available that night. That's a bit of a concern to me, obviously because of the cost. And I'm sure there's probably other things that I've not even thought of that are going to escalate various costs. And I'm curious to know if the chamber has any thoughts about how any remuneration would take place, if any, to try to offset those increased costs.
Well, that has been part of our discussion. With the Harvest Festival being a legacy event and growing, I certainly understand the fact that it increases the resources that the town has to incur. I think we would be willing to have that discussion. I'd also be willing, I would love to kind of sit down and put some numbers together as to the cost comparison and having the shindig and Harvest Festival separate versus together. But yes, we've certainly talked about helping the town with this event on this particular night.
And while I think it's all fair and good to look at the expense on both sides of the fence, I think it's equally as important to highlight what the economic impact is. So let's not keep our eye on the prize.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm appreciative to Mr. Granis for the concept of this is an increased cost to the town of Clayton, but it's also, the number one fundraiser for the chamber, because you certainly can't run an outstanding chamber just on membership fees. So, while I appreciate the fact that you're willing to look at how much it costs to do separate, how much it costs to do, let's also bring to the table what the economic impact is for Clayton, because I'm pretty certain, even with my East Carolina University education, that it's pretty high.
Well, I agree with you, and, I think that we all like to look at data and numbers when we're talking about that, and something that the Chamber has never done that we're going to do in 2020 is an economic impact study on exactly how many people are in Clayton during that week, how it affects the downtown businesses, so that we can give you some numbers so we can show you exactly what kind of economic impact it has. And especially with the shindig being on the same day as the vendor fair, I'm sure that's increased exponentially over the last couple years. So we will have that, and I think I'll be thrilled with the numbers, or at least I hope so anyway.
Awesome. Mr. Granis.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with that, what the mayor says, that it's a significant impact on us with respect to the businesses, a positive impact. I get that. I mean, I'm involved in that, and certainly appreciate it. It's probably the single most important function that we have with respect to a revenue generating situation for all of our businesses in the downtown area, and I totally understand that. And obviously, without the Chamber's cooperation and without Dave's organization's cooperation to do this together, we couldn't realize that. And that does not escape me in the least. So.
I agree with the mayor. I think the benefit of having it, and I think the benefit of having it together outweighs any negatives there in the cost. And I can tell you from 20 years managing a sector of public safety for the town during Halloween, we don't really see any increase in calls for service on Halloween. And that's been, occasionally somebody gets run over by a car, but that's in a neighborhood because they're walking, with vehicles. That's not going to be the case at the Harvest Festival. The roads will be shut down. And I think, we just typically don't see a big surge during Halloween here. And I think, too, out of respect to the workers, like the public safety workers, firefighters and police officers, I'd rather see us knock this thing out in one event than for the chief to have to bring in off-duty officers to work two separate events, because that's two separate weekends that those people are away from their families versus one. And I think the benefits outweigh any negatives here.
Well, I'll just say 40 years ago when I used to go trick-or-treating in Clayton. That is not funny, Ruth.
It is funny, it's hilarious.
You couldn't get a car down the street.
Yeah.
But as times have changed and as our park and recreations have just killed it and knocked it out of the ballpark forever and ever and ever, that aspect of Halloween in the town of Clayton is huge. And you all know, you've been on Main Street and seen those thousands of kids come out with parents and strollers and all of their costumes and everything. So I'm not nearly as worried or as concerned about, increase of calls, or obviously there's always potential for something to go wrong anywhere with any aspect of what we do. But, it's different this day and time. And I think, everybody's creating a win here. Those kids are still going to be able to have a safe place to go and trick or treat and wear their costume and have a great time. And we're still going to be able to have a great celebration, in Clayton.
Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the 2020 dates for the Harvest Festival in Shindig.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the 2020 dates for the Harvest Festival in Shindig. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you both. We appreciate it. Thank you for being here, Ruth. I know you had to leave the beach early to get here.
Excuse me, but she's a little jealous right
What, is she chopped liver? Thank you both. Thank you all. All right, up next is the budget amendment.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight I'm asking council to approve two budget amendments that are interrelated. The first is the appropriation of system development fees from the Capital Reserve Fund to transfer those over to the Neuse River Water Reclamation Facility Capital Project Fund. That's going to cover additional professional services related to the construction of that facility.
Questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the adoption of the ordinances. Is there, of the ones listed? Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Robert. Up next is an update wastewater allocation policy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Rich Capola, Public Services Director. In front of you, you have a long-awaited update to the town's wastewater allocation policy. The last update that I'm aware of was in 2010 to the policy that basically granted allocation based on the projects that were brought forward through the planning process. As part of this update, we tried to maintain as much of the look and feel, I guess, of the previous policy with regards to some of the language. However, some of you had expressed an interest in figuring out a way to manage the little bit of allocation. I said a little bit, the amount of allocation that we have left between now and when we actually have our new facility up and running. So the policy that we've got in front of you is based on one that we found similar in Knightdale, actually, where they used a points-based system to basically analyze each of the developments that would come before you from a planning aspect to determine whether or not they met certain criteria that the council was looking to fulfill with regards to the types of development that the available allocation would be assigned to. So with that, if you got a chance to look at your briefing packets, there's a spreadsheet that from now on, when a developer comes in for a request, whether it's a subdivision, site plan, et cetera, they currently submit a wastewater allocation request to us. Now what they will do is also submit to us the score sheet, essentially, with the goal of achieving at least 50 points to be able to meet the criteria within within the policy. The policy does look to try to allocate more towards the non-residential uses, the commercial development that was expressed previously. We did maintain the same percentages under the Roman numeral 3 under the policy, where no more than 50% of the available capacity would be allocated to residential and at least 30% would be held in reserve for non-residential or commercial development at any given time to ensure that if we do have any of that development proposed, that we have sufficient allocation available. There's also some, kind of nuts and bolts with regards to the procedure. We maintain the 10,000 gallons or above requests will come to the council. Anything less than 10,000 gallons as a request would remain at the administrative town manager or his designee's level. However, they would still have to meet the criteria of the 50 points or better. And last, there's some general conditions with regards to how long those allocations will be in place. Essentially, we tried to mimic the planning approvals. Planning approvals are typically 2 years from the date that they're approved on your all standpoint to have the next phase of development, so construction to begin. With that, we have procedure in here on what happens, or excuse me, how the allocation tracks with those approvals, as well as if they wanted to request a one-year extension to utilize their or maintain the allocation that was provided to them, as well as an appeals process where if somebody did not meet the points criteria, they could still appeal to the council for consideration. However, the policy would, if they did not score at least 50 points, it would indicate that their project would not be granted allocation. With that, just to give you some numbers and updates on where we are at wastewater allocation wise, going to give you a couple numbers here, so it's going to get a little in the weeds like typical, but so the total available that we currently have is approximately 750,000 gallons. However, we know that Little Creek cannot function all the way to its full 2.5 million gallons per day. Right now, the best estimates we have tell us that only about 2.1 million gallons per day can flow through that plant without us having some compliance issues. So deducting that or dropping that number down, that gets to that approximately 350,000 gallons of available allocation that we have right now to be able to spread through available projects. One caveat to that, if you recall, when the Steeplechase subdivision came through last year, they had requested 240,000 gallons. Council approved 120,000 gallons with the ability to get administrative approval for the second 120,000 gallons once they actually fulfilled that the first phases, which would eat up that first 120. So deducting that off, if we assume it's already allocated, that would put us at about 230,000 gallons. I do know that project will likely be coming back to you in the near future for some additional planning modifications, I believe, to their original approval. So there's some considerations that can be made there as well. With that, do you have any questions? I know you do.
Chase, you were just talking about the application's out already. How long has it been sitting out? Because the allocation for that application is following that application, am I correct?
That is correct. Right now, we are a little over a year. I'm going to defer to Samantha on that one.
Their original approval was in July of 2018, so they're coming on 18 months. But since that time, they have submitted minor subdivisions. They have been continually working on the project. There was a period where it was stalled. So in the planning realm, once something's approved and they do nothing for 2 years, it stops.
Gotcha.
But since they have been progressing forward, then it is still, it's valid.
So there is movement on that project?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And again, the timing of our new facility is going to play into this. The clearer that lens gets in terms of when we feel like that facility will actually be online, the state will allow us to go ahead and start booking new allocations. Both, one, we can feel more comfortable about utilizing that 0.4 MGD that's kind of uncertain right now with Little Creek because we don't know if it can, if the flow will hit before that facility is replaced. Once we have a firmer timeline on the actual, the new plant being online, though, that will open us up and the state will allow us to start booking allocation to the new plant. Again, we have to be under construction at that point, but if we're under our current schedule for that project, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, that is the case.
Awesome. So with the allocation you just stated that we have, is that with Raleigh and Johnston County combined, everything?
That is correct. That is, it is a total of 4.9 million gallons per day that we control currently. Again, functionally, we can only really flow about 4.5 million gallons per day total.
I'm good.
Mr. Grant. So first of all, I want to thank you and your team. I think this is a great move forward. Just a couple of questions. I'm assuming that although our economic development director is very short-term, he was probably included in some of the discussions to come up with this. And I was just curious, from an economic development standpoint, is this being supported by that department? I'm assuming it is.
I don't want to speak for the Economic Development Office. I'm not quite sure if the managers had any direct conversations. I do know that he had that Dave had previously expressed a desire to ensure that there was allocation available for some of the types of projects that had been, I guess, kind of high on his list to be going after, the commercial developments particularly. This does provide that, again, about 30% reservation of flow to be able to achieve those if we're fortunate enough to land a project.
And the only other thing that I had a question about is the time frame where you're suggesting the time allotted for the allocation is 12 months. And what happens, I think Samantha may have kind of answered this, but what happens if there's activity, but they still haven't come in for permits and things like that, and the 12 months elapse, and they don't, as an applicant, come back to you and ask for RIA? Would we be proactive and reach out to them and let them know that their timeline is short and that they should renew?
Absolutely. This is a living document. Now that we have a town engineer dedicated to initiatives just like this, he might have just found that out. Now that we're going to be tracking this a little bit differently, we're going to be regularly updating the spreadsheets to make sure any developments that have either fallen behind and may or may not be certain in terms of they're moving forward, we're going to want to get with them as soon as possible, because again, that's allocation that would be tied up. One development, the Carillon assisted living facility that came through about 1.5 years ago, they did, that was one that we did give allocation to that subsequently did withdraw their application and decide not to move forward with the project. So that was one of those where we were able to reach out and say, hey, if you're not moving forward, then we're going to go ahead and rescind the allocation that was previously done. So that is added, the things like that are back in this number, but our intent is to be as proactive as possible moving forward, so we don't get that.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Rich.
The only other thing I'll mention is obviously this is a kind of a first pass for it. This is the first time we're doing this. This document, obviously, as we move forward, if we find there's something not working or there's something that you all initiative-wise would like added or changed in it, we can certainly look at doing that over some time.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Consent. Yeah, so do I hear consent for January 6th?
Consent.
We'll place that on the consent agenda for January 6th. Up next will be the approval of the downtown mural. No, wait, we're skipping that. My bad. Up next will be the amendment to the bylaws, Library Advisory Board.
On September 19th, the Library Advisory Board recommended that they change the wording in their bylaws regarding the recorder of the minutes. Approval of this will require the amendment of section 32 in the code of ordinance, and we're just seeking approval for that change.
Questions or comments?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution 2019-49. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Up next is the Code of Ordinance Amendments, Chapter 32.
Okay, and due to a recent change for the Recreation Advisory Board from their members dropping to 11, and then this recent library board change to their bylaws, we are amending Chapter 32, Section 060 and 117 to reflect these changes to the bylaws. And we're just asking for approval for that.
Awesome. Any questions or comments? I move we approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the adoption of the ordinance 2019-1203. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now move along to staff reports, beginning with the manager.
No report.
Town attorney.
No report.
Town clerk.
No report.
All right, next is the AMI update.
Good evening, everyone, and I apologize for my voice. I seem to be catching whatever's going around town hall right now. I'm here tonight just to give us a brief update on the AMI project, or Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project. As you all know, this is a huge project for the town. It's actually touching almost every department in the town. We had an update meeting today, and honestly, every department was represented. It was a huge meeting that we had. There were kind of a couple of reasons that we wanted to take on this project. And the biggest one was that our metering infrastructure is aging out. So, long before I got here, I'd say it was 15, 16 years ago, the town started the project that was called AMR, and that was the drive-by project where we didn't have to get out of our trucks to read the meters. And we've dabbled at that over the years. We still have over 3,000 water meters that our employees lift the lids on every month and bend over and have to read. So technology has changed greatly in the last 10 years. So we could have gone the route of let's just change out all of those meters to the AMR meters and just drive by and get the readings. But that really wasn't going to satisfy kind of updates in technology. And then again, another big factor is the information that we can push to customers. So customers are going to be able to, when we're 100% deployed in this project, they're going to be able to have information at their fingertips about how their lifestyles impact their bills, their consumptions. And I'm also going to say we're going to have a lot of information at our fingertips too to push out to customers. So today, and many of you sitting up there have called me and said, wow, my water bill's really high. What's going on? And we talk and we figure out it could be as simple as you have a toilet that is running. I don't want to say leak because people think that means water on their floor, but that flap in that toilet's not sealing properly, and that we don't really realize that for 35 days after that has started at your home or your business. So again, with this new technology, what it's going to bring to us is the ability to contact a customer sooner to say, we noticed tremendously high water usage over the last 24 hours. And work with you quicker on solving that problem. And speaking with a couple of the municipalities who've already put this project into place and completed it, Fayetteville, PwC being one, they said that was the biggest benefit to them is cutting down on these calls of high bill complaints, because again, we are able to be more proactive and the customer also will have that information at their fingertips. We currently have, we're in the process now, and this is such a moving timeline. We're on schedule in terms of meter deployment. The first meters that are going to be put in the ground and tested and billed will be the town's meters. So we will be installing those in the month of January, reading those through the towers, through how we're going to be able to gather the information, and billing ourselves. And we're doing this long before we actually will be billing customers. I mean, we want to make sure that the billing is correct before we start billing customers in the field. The deployment of those meters based on that testing should start in roughly February. And it's about an 18-month project of deployment of all the meters that we have in town. So water and electric will be deployed at the same time. There will be crews in the field. They will have identification. The contractor will have magnets on trucks and badges, and they will be identified. Stacy and I are working, and I'm sorry she's not here tonight, but she did a bill backer that's going to go on bills, starting with our bills that go out. I believe Terry said January 3rd will be our next set of bills that will go out. That will have information about the project, again, just keeping customers and the public informed. But we're working on a really strategic communications plan about when we will be in neighborhoods, when we'll be changing out meters. And we're even thinking about revamping our bill. I believe, Mr. Holder, you talked to me about that. And we want to make our bill a better bill for customers, especially as we're moving through this project. And we're looking at that. So Stacy and I are working on a lot of communications. Since May, since we chose Ferguson as our water meter vendor, all new construction has the new meters installed in the ground. Now, we can't read them through the towers yet. They're not turned on. That's something that will happen very soon after we do our testing on ourselves and we make sure everything's good. We'll go out and there's a turn on those meters, and then we'll be able to build those meters through the new process where we're not driving by or lifting the lid on those. We have no electric meters. We have one electric meter out so far. We did a test on one electric meter. So electric meters, as of today, we know we have a huge batch that's been ordered, and that will be starting with, as Dale phases out those Itron meters that we've been using. Do I have any questions? Or, as of right now, we're on schedule. I will definitely be doing more of these updates for you.
And I've got two items I'd like to talk to you about real quick. Stepping back from the beginning of this, where we discussed, we have some citizens that are concerned about the safety of this. When you say towers, are you talking about operating off of a cellular tower? Is this kind of like a cellular system? Or is this a microwave? I don't know.
No. It's a radio frequency. We have the collectors on the 2 water tanks and on a pole at Riverwood. And Dale, where is the 4th one? There are 4 at the Ops Center. I'm sorry, at the Ops Center.
So it's a two-way radio type situation?
Correct.
Just same thing like a police would have or whatever?
Yes. Yes.
So, and I know there's concern not only here, but all over North Carolina that's switching to these. Is there any way we can get some information on the safety of these? Because a lot of people have a lot of misconception of what these things are doing. I'm more worried about my microwave in my house than I am a two-way radio. I mean, these cell phones probably emit more radiation than this system does.
Yes, sir. And we do have that information available, and Stacy and I will make sure you all get that.
Yeah,
We will definitely do that.
I just know there's some citizens that are concerned. The second thing I have also is the life of these meters, 15 years,
15, yes, sir.
and we're charging $2 a month per meter.
Yes, sir.
I didn't go to East Carolina, Jody. What is $2? Is it $2 a meter?
Yes, sir.
15 years? So you went to East Carolina, how much?
It's $30 times 15 years is $450.
So basically what I'm asking is we're going to continue charging $2 continuously. And other communities, I know Mr. Granis has spoken to another community somewhere that they stop after the meter's paid for.
Well, this is paying the debt, my understanding of Robert, you may want to speak to this, but this is paying the debt service on the project, not just buying the meter, but the debt service on the entire project.
So maybe down the road, we can look at this after we get the debt service paid off?
I don't see why we wouldn't look at that.
Okay, cool. I'm good. Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
Great job. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll now open the floor for informal discussion and public comment. Anyone wish to speak, please step forward and state your name for the record.
Council members, staff. My name is Kyle McDermott, and I'm with Johnston Health. I serve as their Vice President of Support Services, both in Smithfield and Clayton, and I also serve as the site administrator of the Clayton Hospital. So I had 2 things I'd like to speak to you for very briefly. The first, as a chamber member and being on the board of directors, thank you for your earlier vote in support of that. I know that does tie up a lot of resources. Chief is excellent to work with, and really appreciate the support the law enforcement gives us at the hospital. And being a resident of Clayton for 36 years, thank you very much for that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight, you've heard about quite a bit already tonight, is water. But mine's a little bit different. And I know sometimes when people step up to this podium, you don't know what they're going to talk about, good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm sure you're going like, where's he going? So I'm going to make this real quick. We had an event Saturday morning, and there's 2 things that affect the operations of a hospital: not having nurses and not having water. And I just want to commend you and your staff for how quickly they took care of the problem that we had Saturday morning. Because I was woken up, well, I was really already awake, but got my early morning call that we had no water at the hospital. And it was it the county? Was it the town? We get our water from the town. We didn't have water. It was the town. I had an opportunity to talk to Dave DeYoung, to Adam, to Rich, and they are very quick to react, and they understood what my problem was. And What I really need to know was time, and was I going to need to bring in a tanker? The hospital operates pretty much self-sufficient. I can do power, I have fuel, but water is not something I have. So without it, then I have to figure out getting a tanker in or what I'm going to be doing. They did get it fixed, got us back online very quickly. You have an employee in the utilities, I believe his name is Rod. A1 guy. If I could hire him away from you, I would do that, but I'm glad to know where he is and that I can get him. So really tonight, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and thank you very much for having such a good staff of people that are looking after us. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
You're not allowed to talk to Rod again, then, if that's the case. So.
Mr. Thompson.
Kyle, glad you're here. I was going to recognize you anyway and just tell you thank you for what the hospital contributes to our community. And, you know, that's a big driver for a town, you know, that we've got the healthcare hub that has grown around the hospital. In my dealings with people countywide and out of county, a lot of people come to Clayton for health care, and we recognize the importance of what the hospital does for that.
Thank you. We're looking forward to getting back in front of the council very soon about one of our upcoming projects, so hopefully we'll be partnering up again.
Good, thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else? All right, if not, I'll turn it over to council for comments. Mr. Holder.
I want to talk a little bit about what our long-term plan on development. I learned last week that the primary thrust for high-density development seems to be coming from the builders and not from the buyers. I'm concerned about that because high density usually means starter-size houses. And for community to thrive and continue, you need more than just starter houses. You need starter houses, you need medium-sized houses, and you need upscale houses. And if we're building nothing but high density, down the road, we're going to have a lot of high density houses sitting there with nobody wanting to buy them, and people moving out because they're going to medium or upscale houses. And I think that's an issue we need to think about and look at it while we're looking at our UDC plan.
I think that is a great topic to add to our retreat agenda.
It is a big part of our retreat already. So we are actually in the middle of really trying to select a firm to help us with our Unified Development Ordinance update, but in addition, we're discussing about our land use plan and our long-range land use planning. So we plan on spending some time at our retreat this year. I think the time is right because of the age of the plan, but also as we look at the council and staff, many of us were not the same faces that went through that process before. This is a good time for us to revisit that and make sure we can all get on the same page. So we are definitely in agreement that we need to discuss that with the council and get your priorities on that.
Awesome.
One other thing that I'm concerned about is I hear a lot about controlling residential development. And high density seems to be the direction. But I think if we get to the point that our sewer capacity is taxed out, I see no problem with having developments with septic tanks. I think that's something else we need to have on the drawing board as a possibility, so we do not stop residential development anywhere in the town of Clayton.
Anyone else? All right, if not, I would just like to give a quick shout out to our partners at the Clayton Rotary Club for a fantastic Christmas parade this past Saturday in Clayton. A lot of time, energy, and effort and planning went into that. Also want to thank our town for various departments who were just tremendous in making that happen, and that extends far beyond just public safety and fire. I loved totally being behind the water sewer float, if you will, and took me a while to figure out why the symbol of water and sewer was attached to the back of that trailer. And then I read, oh yeah, this is the wastewater treatment facility department, which was fantastic. I thought that was perfect. It was just a great parade, and, you know, it's definitely one of those legacy events in the town of Clayton, and I can't thank everybody enough for making it possible. So, Merry Christmas to everyone, and we will see you next year. Same bat time, same bat channel. All right, anything else to come before this board? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night.